welcome everybody. Let's talk real estate. Your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current commercial real estate market here in Southern California. As we take a no BS look at both sides of the issues driving this market today to find the best solutions going forward. With our man right in the middle, it's Barry Saywitz. Hey, Barry.
Hey, good morning, Paul, and good morning to all of our viewers and our listeners out there. It is January 2nd. Happy New Year to everybody, 2024. I want to wish everybody out there and everyone here at the station a happy, healthy, prosperous new year. We welcome it in. It's sunny here in Southern California, and I'm excited to be back, and we're doing it again. We got an election year. We got all kinds of things going on in the economy, so we got plenty of stuff to talk about. Before we get going, I do want to do a shout-out to the Michigan football team. I know Paul's an alumni, very excited here. He's been running around all morning. And also to the Washington football team. Those are two of the best college football games back-to-back that I've seen in a long, long time. So congratulations to them. We'll be back here next week, and we'll figure out who wins the final showdown. And if Michigan loses, Paul will probably be depressed and at home. And if he wins, he still may be out partying and not show up either way. So with all of that said, I want to welcome our guest, the esteemed mayor of the great city of Aliso Viejo, Mike Munzing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Barry. Look forward to being here. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so we're glad to have you, and it's exciting first show of the year. We thought we'd get off to a great start, and I know that both you personally and the city of Aliso Viejo have a lot of things going on and a lot of things to talk about, so glad to have you here with us this morning.
Thank you, Barry.
So in terms of your background, I guess let's go back a little bit personally, and then we'll flip to the city for a second. But your history, you're a longtime resident of Orange County.
Born and raised in Orange.
Yeah, and so seeing all the growth, we're both not that old, but old enough to have seen quite a bit of dynamic growth.
Yeah, certainly.
Here from a real estate standpoint. And you started out back around the same time I did in the brokerage business for a little bit and then switched into the mortgage. What was the drive or the decision to get into real estate in the first place?
Well, you know, I'd been working, excuse me, I'd been working in the restaurant world, but met one of the other guys, if you remember the Warehouse restaurant down in Newport Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Worked at the Warehouse. One of the guys got his real estate license and said, you really ought to do this. I was raised, my dad was a pastor, and Don Tarbell from Tarbell Real Estate was part of the congregation. I'd known Don, and I gave Don a call. I said, hey, I'm thinking about getting my real estate license, and he was always trying to
recruit,
get
right?
new agents. So he said, let me put you through my real estate school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. So I got licensed in 19, and he understood I was kind of focused on the commercial industrial side, as was his son. But yeah, I was like, I got licensed early and didn't use it immediately, but that kind of was my entree into it. Still worked in the real estate, in the restaurant world for a little while, but
it's funny because the Warehouse, I lived down the street from the Warehouse on the peninsula in Newport Beach, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And my roommates were the bartenders at the Warehouse when they had the nightclub later on underneath,
later on.
right? And so it was a restaurant, and then it was also became a nightclub, and so I remember it very, very well. That's
I worked in the bar, so
yeah, that's when they still allowed like loud music and partying and stuff.
But no dancing.
Right.
It was no dancing.
Right. I got kicked out for dancing once.
Sure,
so.
I bet. There you go.
So you get into the real estate business, and then all of a sudden you got the 80s, right? And it's booming, and there's stuff getting built, and there's big parties, and developers are throwing money left and right.
In the 80s, it was wild.
Right. I mean, you could make a deal, get a Rolex watch or a Porsche, or shrimp and lobster, and those were the days, right?
We talked a minute ago about a car phone, which was a big deal back then, because they weren't, they were $1,400 and big installation in your car. It was pretty wild. So,
right, and each developer would try and outdo the next guy, right? And from a marketing standpoint, and also just from whatever they were building. And so, all of a sudden, market goes south, right? And we were talking earlier. I started October 1989. Real estate market crashes November 1989. So that was my welcome into real estate. And you decided to get in the mortgage business, right?
Well, there was about a year in the middle where I tried to get into electronics, which didn't go very well, selling microchips, and, that was a tough market for that as well. So then a friend of mine had gotten into the mortgage world. He was more personal finance initially, then wanted to get into the more real estate mortgage. I was a broker. at least smart enough to become a broker early.
Yeah.
So I was asked to be his broker, learned a lot from him, and went to work. We went to work together, and so we were on our own for the first. Well, he owned the company. He owned it, but I was the broker for the first few years. Then he decided when things got really tough in the early '90s, when the rates started going up again.
Right.
He got out. I moved with a bigger company and started focusing on the realtors versus the initial refi market.
Yeah.
So then,
and it's funny how that comes full circle, right? So you're talking early '90s, market is struggling, and then there's multiple cycles in between.
Sure.
And then, not to jump over the recession and all of that, which I don't want to relive, but all of a sudden things are cooking along right before COVID, right? And then here we are again, and I don't want to say similar situation, but similar dynamics in that you have high interest rates, you have the market struggling along, you have volume just basically whacked because of the higher rates and people waiting to see what winds up happening.
And the interesting thing is every time the rates are high, of course, then that becomes, when they dip, that becomes another refi boom.
Right.
And that's just, it's cyclical that way. And I just said not to relive the recession, but I had been talking for years because I was not a subprime guy. I was a straight up, I think you got to qualify for this mortgage, because I felt like I was looking after my client, the buyer, the borrower, and said, look, if you can't actually qualify to live, this is going to be bad. It's going to be a bad deal. So getting some of these mortgages I saw going down were crazy. They were talking about predatory lenders. It was predatory borrowers.
Brokers, right.
It was and borrowers, because the borrowers are getting into loans they never should have gotten into.
Right.
And we're being pushed by everybody. But I saw the blame on that, and I was talking about that for years, because I saw some of these no income qualifying, negative amortization to 90% or 100% in some cases. I said, this can't exist. And it lasted about a year after that. And Bear Stearns was the one offering that, and they were gone pretty quick.
Right.
So,
and then you had people giving it back. And so it's interesting. What's different now, I think, is you have these higher interest rates, but you have a lot of people that are locked in at what is yesterday's rates. And so they're not motivated to sell unless there's a reason. Because if I have a 2.5% mortgage and I had to go get a 6.5% mortgage or more, excuse me, then there's not a lot of motivation to double or triple my payment.
Well, that is why the real estate prices in residential have not fallen.
Yeah.
And because there's no inventory, because my rate's below 2.5. I mean, it's because me being in the industry, I saw it, but I saw it coming, so I could nail it down. But I have no motivation to move. My wife and I don't even think about it, because we're set.
Yeah, and that's really the case for a lot of people. Is, look, if I could trade up, if I could get a nicer, newer, bigger, different house, I would do it. But if I can't, I'm fine where I'm at.
Exactly.
Right. And then now the barrier to entry for a first-time home buyer, or for somebody coming and moving into the area, especially in Orange County, it's very, very difficult, and it really forces people to continue to rent, and you have a difficult time getting into something at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the tough part is, do you really believe these prices are real, but once again, real estate's limited, and being in politics, I'm always meeting with folks talking about how the inventory is low, and that's true, it is, because there's a lot of renters out, and that rental market's amazing right now.
Well, and again, let's rewind. I want to shift gears a little bit to the city of Aliso Viejo. So the city of Aliso Viejo, I did a little homework.
Oh, good.
So Aliso Viejo means old sycamore in Spanish.
I've heard old poplar, but you've done more.
My friend Google said old sycamore, but if you say poplar,
that's what I meant. It's
an old tree.
It's an old tree of some sort.
And but Aliso Viejo is really formed out of, I guess I'll describe it as an offshoot of the Moulton Ranch, which was a very large ranch.
It's built on not an offshoot of, more of a built on the Moulton Ranch, as was Laguna Hills, as was Laguna Niguel, Laguna Woods, and Aliso Viejo. It was originally a 22,000 acre ranch parcel that Lewis Moulton, in I think 1889, when he took ownership of that. And that was, somebody else had a little bit before, but then it came out of the
and it really goes back
to Spanish.
Really the land grant from the Spanish, right?
Exactly.
And so the city was designed, and I guess the conception of it was really to be a master plan community.
Absolutely.
And really designed to be predominantly residential with pockets of commercial and retail.
Right.
to
From the
support it.
Mission Viejo company was the company in charge of kind of doing that.
Right.
They had built Mission Viejo. That was their next project. Aliso Viejo. I saw, interestingly, an old movie. It was Death Race 2000 with David Carradine. But the background, they used the ziggurat building.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole background was what is now Aliso Viejo. It was all
Right.
rolling green mountains, green hills. It was great. But yeah, so they, when I was around down here years before, nothing was there. And we just watched a lot of the dirt work, and then Aliso Viejo arrived.
Right. And then they started selling homes. And then I
Yeah.
remember, people would be like, why are you going to move down there? There's nothing down there.
Exactly.
And then now it's a great place to live. It's,
Sure.
The proximity is even more as everything else got developed around.
Yeah.
And the people who bought there early on did very, very well.
Yeah, and parts of Mission Viejo and Laguna Niguel was already there,
Yeah.
so that helped. It wasn't an island; it was more of a growth off of what the initial build out was.
Yeah. And so the city's only, about 20?
It was 2001, I think.
Right.
It was June.
Yeah.
2001, so it'd be 22 years.
Right. And so over that period of time, the city gets predominantly built out, right?
Right.
I mean, it is.
And a lot of it was built before, obviously, when the county had it, because
Yeah.
it was county property earlier, much like Ladera Ranch is now, where it's just county property, it's not a city, but they were county. And then I think it was a lot of the fight over turning the El Toro base into an airport is where there was a lot of community involvement, which led to a group really wanting to make it a city.
Yeah, and really master plan
Yeah.
all the way down
All
to
the
the
way
nth
down.
degree. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's schools or shopping, or
Everything's an
roads or-
HOA.
Right.
We've got that centralized, the town center, which other cities have. They look at Laguna Niguel and Laguna Hills. They've got shopping areas all throughout the city. We've got the whole city wrapped around town center, which is surrounding that you have the commercial base and then the retail base with the theater, and it's
Right.
a great setup. So
Yeah. And so, in terms of looking forward, I mean, you've been involved with the city for quite some time,
12
right?
years, yeah.
So that's like more than half the time that the city's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
in business. What is the game plan then for the city in a general sense going forward? I mean, it's not really growth because you're pretty much built out.
We're pretty much built out, exactly. There's a lot of pressures coming in from more regional side. I know other guests have talked about the housing numbers and
Right.
RENA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment, which is, I also served on SCAG, which is a Southern California Association of Governments, which is a regional board. And they're the ones that give every city a RENA number, which says you need to build this many properties.
Right.
They don't care that you're built out. So
Or that you can't, or that
you
you're
can't.
constricted.
They
or,
really don't care. Yeah, and their big thing is to low-income housing.
Right.
But their low-income housing is, they only do that by how many units per acre, and so it's just really small properties. They don't control the prices. They just control the size, or you go vertical, or it just really crams a lot of properties into a small amount of space. Which
And so, I mean,
makes
we
it
had
tough.
the
It makes it
mayor
tough.
of Huntington Beach on. He's very
Sure.
adamant about we're not doing
yeah,
it.
Tony's
and-
great.
Right.
I love Tony.
They're suing the state and
Yeah.
the governor and all of that stuff, and it's just they're not participating, I guess, is the best way to.
Right, and they're set up as a different kind of a charter city. We're more of a general law city, but they've got a little more freedom to fight things. And who knows if Michael Gates is going to win, and he's their city attorney. But I'm following so sorry.
Oh, see,
Look at that.
That's him calling.
That's me forgetting to turn my ringer off. But so, and they really, that last election was a coup for Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
And I think November is going to be as well. So they've got the focus, and they've got the cohesiveness of those 4 council members to really push this stuff.
But what do you do in your city? I mean, there's
in
no
our
place
ci-
to build. I mean,
Yeah,
you just
that's-
feel like I can't.
Right. And what we did the last time was we were fortunate that we had some senior living homes that we brought in, and that satisfied the requirement
Huh, interesting.
at the time. So they had, I can't remember how many units it was. I think it was 2 different buildings, 200 each, or no, I can't remember the exact number, but that was a little bit lower income, but it was provided a lot of homes for seniors.
Yeah.
Which is great, and it's still satisfied. And the ruling on that is you need to make properties available for that if it makes sense to a developer. Now, whether it ever gets actually built or not, we don't know.
Yeah.
And those properties, the low income properties, are being subsidized by the state. And I've done some calculations where, the amount of subsidized aspect of that housing is like $300,000 per unit, and they want, I think we're at 1,100 units. I can't remember the exact number right now, but
1,100 that you're
they're
supposed
to build,
which is a crazy number.
And you do,
for a city the size of what
300,000 times 1,100. Now, if you look statewide, if it's average 300,000,
right,
statewide, that's millions of properties, that's trillions of dollars. Nobody has that kind of money,
right?
So, what's really the motivation? And I spent 3 years on that board up in L.A., the SCAG.
Yeah.
And
well, in LA, you could take an old motel, you could knock something
Right.
down.
Well,
you don't even have stuff that's old enough to knock down.
Exactly. But that they met up in LA, but we ruled over, however, we covered 6 counties or 18 million people. And this is, I fought them all the time. I was voting no on everything. That, I'd always be a no vote because your motivations are wrong.
Yeah.
There's lots of things coming down the pipe that they want that for me don't make common sense.
Yeah, I don't even know how you do it.
Yeah, you don't. And
so what else is the city then
so
focused
the city,
on the positive note?
Right,
right?
on the positive note, many people remember our Lowe's Center. We've got the Lowe's building. Everybody brings up the Lowe's building. But now that's going to be a new, they're subdividing it into Tesla with their sales, which would be great for sales tax, which as a city official, that's great. But we'll have a large Tesla sales facility, which will also have a maintenance facility. And I don't think they're doing body work, but they're doing some other refurbishments in there. So, and it's going to be a delivery center. So when people get their Teslas, they'll be able to go there to pick them up.
So it'll bring people into the city, and it's another dot on the map.
Exactly. Then next to that, I believe we have a Lucky Strike. It was part of that Bolero, but now Bolero bought Lucky Strike, a big bowling alley, which, it's old school, but it's fun.
But in a general sense, it seems like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's creating amenities for the people within
fun
the
for the
city.
entertainment for the family.
Yeah.
And that's good. So that we've got a big climbing gym coming in, because old school traditional retail, and I feel bad when I buy on Amazon, but it makes life so much easier that you do that. So we're bringing facilities that are actual, that people need to be there. It's a people thing.
Yeah.
And the climbing gym will for fitness, and that is really cool what they've done with that. And they have, it's called Sender One, and they have one right down the 55 here down the street, and it's been pretty exciting.
And the majority of the population in the city really is families, right?
Yeah, the family, but it's a very fit community.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got some of the best mountain biking in the county right behind us in Aliso Wood Park, to where I used to race mountain bikes years ago, and I did a lot of my training back there. So it's great. That's part of the reason why my wife and I moved to Aliso Viejo when we did. I was not in politics then. I was, not even a fraction of what I am now as far as focus.
So what was the motivation to get into politics in the first place?
I think I mentioned my dad was a minister.
Right.
So I was raised in, I believe, somewhat of a conservative viewpoint from home, from my dad being
I think people would
a
call
Christian
you conservative,
pastor.
right?
Oh, right now, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about developing time as my foundation. But what really got me was I started working right there where Jimmy Carter was going out and Ronald Reagan was coming in. And, Ronald Reagan was, I like many did, I watched what happened with the hostages in Iran.
Yeah.
And then Reagan comes in on January 20th on his inauguration. They gave all the hostages back. I said, now that showed me something. And it was they were intimidated. They knew they didn't want to mess with Reagan.
Right.
They could mess with Jimmy Carter, but they didn't want to mess with Reagan.
Well, they did mess with Carter, right?
Yeah, sure. Of course they did. Yeah. So for me, I saw that as, strength, strength is a good thing. And they deemed Reagan very strong. They didn't want to mess with Reagan. So they gave all the hostages back. I could be very simplistic way to look at it, but I was a young guy. And I saw how I felt about the economy and going to work under Carter, and then under Reagan. It's like a new breath of...
Right, it's night and day.
Yeah, it's night and day. Exactly. So it was great. So that showed me early on, and I loved Reagan. I just thought Reagan was great. He wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But it was the whole mindset, the whole
He
feeling.
was better than Carter, although I
Oh,
guess
yeah.
anybody was better than
Yeah,
Carter.
anybody was better than Carter. Yeah, exactly. So that instilled in me early on kind of a mindset of, Reagan's good, Carter's bad, Reagan's a Republican now, and Carter had a different mindset. And over the years, it was more of a, more of a hard work and a meritocracy attitude. If I worked hard, well, when I got into real estate, we talked about it before. I looked at a guy like Al Pekarzik, who was at the time was a big industrial guy, commercial industrial guy, great broker out there who I saw him as a huge success. He was a huge success. And he worked so hard, but he had a great attitude and great vibe. I looked at my people I wanted to emulate.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I look at everybody trying to lower the bar to make so everybody's covered, well, that's not how people grow.
So at what point did you decide, okay, I want to actually...
And that wasn't until I was married previously and working in the mortgage world and racing mountain bikes and doing that.
Was there a aha moment where you said, hey.
I got remarried, and then I think when I saw Obama, and I just had a strange, bad vibe about the guy. It wasn't just that sounds like kind of a communist. I mean, it was not saying he was a communist, but it was just that different mindset. I hadn't really heard it articulated that way, and it just really hit me hard. Where like, no, I don't like this at all. This is not how we should be. And
So you said to yourself, hey,
I
I
need to get,
I
I
can
need
make
to
a
get
difference.
involved. Yeah, and I started learning more about some of the development stuff. I don't want to go back to anything conspiratorial, but a thing called Agenda 21 and some of what we're facing now with 15-minute cities. It's an ongoing process, and we're talking about future development. There's a lot of motivation coming out of Europe and different things and that's why I stay in politics now, is that I'm just trying to watch what they're trying to push here and trying to be a stalwart against that.
And so you were city council, you were mayor.
Well, I first got into the Republican. First I got elected to the Republican Party Central Committee, the leadership of the Republican Party, and actually my ex-wife was involved in that too. I was not as much. I mean, I can't remember what year it was that.
This is back when
Bob Dole.
Right, but this is also back when Orange County really was almost exclusively, I'll say, Republican. I mean, in today's world, a little more split.
Of course, yeah.
And pockets, but definitely more split than it was 20 years ago.
They've really brought in a lot of the high density housing and more apartment projects and more multifamily residents, and that does tend to, I look at that a little bit more of a transient population, which the homeowners have been there 30 years in many cases, 40, 50 now, but the multifamily people roll over and kind of moving through, and that tends to lean a little bit more liberal or Democrat, and I think that brought a lot of that in, and a lot of the policies, the immigration policies certainly has been rough on everybody, but that brings in more of a dependent population that is looking for government assistance, and if you're looking for government assistance, you're going to lean Democrat.
Yeah, and so now this is what, your third stint as mayor.
Third stint as mayor.
So the people must like you.
Yeah, well, it appears. But I've got a lot done.
And your peers like you.
Yeah.
And
it's been nice. It's been nice because I came in and being the conservative, there was a group that wasn't happy about me. Some of the protests were entertaining, but a lot of those people either moved away or passed away. A couple of specifics, but fortunately, I was able to win a lot of battles. And coming in initially, that's what got me interested in going for city council. They were moving towards, one was a green city initiative that had a lot. It would have cost the residents millions of dollars, and a lot of things that the state. I knew state mandates were coming down. It's called Title 24.
Right.
And but it was the city's own version of, they're trying to get ahead of it. I don't know who they're trying to win brownie points for, but it was one of our director of planning out of Berkeley, and he had this whole mindset. He had a ICLEI handbook out of the UN, and he was trying to put it into place.
Yeah.
And it was very underhanded. And I went to as a resident early, I went to a visioning meeting, as they call it, and I was just ridiculed and mocked and treated with disrespect, and I personally didn't like that, and I didn't like it for for the fact that they could do that to other people. So I backed off, put a campaign together, ran for city council. It was Congressman Rohrabacher's wife, Rhonda, who really encouraged me to run, and I went ahead
And here you are.
I got elected and went back to that same director of planning and said, now you got to deal with me as a council member.
Right, now you're fired. Or
no,
whatever.
well, he was gone pretty quick.
Yeah.
But,
Look, change is sometimes good. And,
Yeah.
And here you are, and the city's doing well.
it's going great.
So let's talk a little bit going forward, because it is an
Sure.
election year. We're at the beginning of the year.
I'm up.
I mean, you were a good guest to have to start out the
Sure.
conversation. Now we're getting closer to the election,
Right.
Right, and you've got not only the national stuff but the local stuff.
Right.
Start with the local. What are some of the key races that you're watching here in Orange County or in Southern California that you think are going to be important?
Well, this kind of holds true. I know you met with the chairman, Fred Whitaker, the Scott Baugh's race, the Senate, Congressional 47.
Yeah.
I got to remember the new numbers. They redistricted.
redistrict, right.
I'm like, who's what? Where am I? But yeah, he's pretty critical. And I think right now, and as things transpired, David Ming got himself into some hot water with the DUI, and that makes it a little bit tougher for him. But then another lady has come in to go there as well. So I can't remember how many are on the list, but I know Scott's got a good shot, and he's coming in strong. He's got a lot of support, and that should be interesting to ideally pick that seat up.
Yeah.
Senate 37, which is the district I'm in, which I think is currently held by David Min, but I know Josh Newman is running for that. That one's kind of disheartening for me because I was going to run for that. But talking to people who care about me, Janet Lynn, and we talked before, I've had some medical challenges over the last number of years, and you
don't need the headache.
Yeah,
right?
I don't
stick
need
with
that.
what you know.
Yeah, stick with what I know, and had some medical challenges, and it would be difficult on me physically and medically to make that commute every week.
Yeah.
And to Sacramento, but
it will be an interesting race.
It will be an interesting race. We've got 3 candidates fighting, and I've been deeply involved in that. And
what do you think on the national level? I know everybody's got an opinion. I guess I'll ask the question because I'm curious myself, and we talk about it at the dinner table more than once or twice. But do you think that Biden will make it to the election, or is there a plan?
Well, you're certainly starting to see every time the media ramps up to turn on him a little bit. He remains
right. He's still there.
He's still there. And I think, okay, I'm putting my Republican hat on a little bit now, but I think there was some disappointment in how Kamala Harris has performed over the years. And, I think they saw her as the, hey, we can elevate her. And then I don't know if it's the cackling.
I don't see it.
I don't think cackling and everything. She just hasn't performed. She hasn't
done anything.
They go, well, no, that's not going to work. And I do think Gavin Newsom seems to be running a shadow campaign.
Yeah.
For
him, I think, there's no downside, right? He's still governor, and he's got nothing to lose other than raise the stakes.
So he's been running kind of a shadow campaign that if air quotes, something happens with Biden not being able to run.
Right. Or his numbers are so bad they think he can't win, right? It's one or the other.
Newsom is going to be the guy to, I don't see anybody else.
Yeah.
So, not with that kind of charisma. And he's got serious charisma. I met him years ago at a big conference, and the guy's got serious charisma.
Yeah, I just look, for me, I look at it as a businessman and as a small business owner, it is a challenge, and there's been nothing but struggles to continue to manage and grow and try and be successful in business, and for the average person to try and get ahead. It's just really the overall economic platform and the processes and the things that they put in place really have not been.
Well, the tough part in running a business, as I had for many years, is the confidence in what's coming, or the stability in what we can count on. And it's like ever shifting sand. It's hard to know how to build your foundation or build for growth when you don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
And most of what's coming isn't based in common sense.
Well, and I think people react based on what they believe is coming. And if you don't
Right.
know what's coming, it's hard to react. No different than interest
Right.
rates, right? We're back
Yeah.
to the real estate piece, which is if I felt like interest rates were going down tomorrow,
Right.
then I might start circling the wagons. And if I felt like it was going to dip, then maybe I would refinance. Maybe I would buy
Sure.
a house. Maybe I would do something. But with the fact that it hasn't, then it just keeps everybody on the sidelines and sort of just kicks the can.
Yeah, and the question is, it's been brought up, do you think rates are going to drop? Well, being it's an election year, traditionally, historically, rates have trended downward a little into election year.
But you're not going to see what
no,
we saw before.
No,
It's gone.
absolutely not. Yeah, it's gone. And, I've been watching the spending on both sides, on the federal spending, the printing, let's just say, the excessive printing of money. And in the long term, it's going to be hard to know how we're going to recover from that without some fairly hard, austere, some tough moments.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's going to be, it's not going to be the gravy train forever. It just can't be.
Yeah, and I think, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean,
Yeah.
the change may be what gets people off the fence and what gets people believing that there's a brighter day ahead.
Right.
And I guess we're going to hear a lot more about it as we get closer to the election. We could
Sure.
go on that one all day.
Yeah,
But as I
exactly.
told you when we started, it goes quick. We've only got a couple minutes
exactly.
left. I do want to back up for a second. So I do want to touch on the fact that you mentioned you had some medical issues, and
Yeah.
so you are a survivor of a double lung transplant.
Yeah, September 23rd of 2020.
Which is just mind-boggling, and so we're happy to have you here, and
Well,
glad
thank
you're
you.
upright and
I'm
breathing
glad I'm
and
here.
doing it. You look great.
In the big
so-
picture, I'm glad I'm here.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm getting through some stomach stuff now. Again, it started with stomach issues. Had the lung transplant. Now I've since had other stomach issues that I've got an appointment on Thursday that I'm going to address more of that. But that's getting better and looking good. My weight's, a year ago I was 40 pounds lighter, and
That's just
now I'm
great.
at my target weight and getting stronger, and things are good. Things
Yeah,
are looking
well,
up.
we'll knock on wood, and we'll
Yeah.
keep our fingers crossed for you. And,
But it's going to be an exciting year. Once again, some people don't realize that many of the cities in Orange County, we rotate mayors every year.
yeah.
And that's what people don't understand. But some cities are elected mayors, we're not. We rotate, which is great. Gives everybody a chance to, say they're a mayor, and it doesn't give you any more power, really. I mean, you only have one vote on the council,
Right.
and you just you get to run the meetings, and
You get the gavel.
yeah,
right?
you get the gavel, and people say, well, what do you want to do? Well, my view on running a city is I look at a white canvas where I want to provide a beautiful, safe city for my residents to paint their lives. I don't want to be painting their lives.
Yeah.
So that I want to bring in great retail, great entertainment. We have a new ranch. We have a Aliso Viejo ranch. It's been amazing. I was instrumental in bringing that together. That was you mentioned Moulton Ranch. That was the last 7.7 acre parcel of the original Moulton Ranch from Lewis Moulton back in 1889.
Yeah, crazy.
So it's fantastic, and we brought some of the history back, and that's been great for weddings and the public, and folks can go out there and see it. It makes a good unifying area.
And so if people want to find out more about the city, what's the website for the city that they
Well,
would
for the
go to?
city, it's avcity.org. So just AV for Aliso Viejo City.org. We used to be much longer. We shortened it into something short and cute, and makes it easier. And
It works.
so it's a great city. But
And then I guess as a final question, just so what do you think is the main issue, if there is one? We know there's many, but
Right.
Going forward in terms of just the economy and in terms of leading up to the election, what's the big thing that really keeps you up at night or that you focus on?
public safety, in that the sheriff's costs and all law enforcement costs are skyrocketing.
Yeah.
And, everybody's living lean. As far as COVID really beat up the cities quite a bit. We had some help from the federal government, a little bit of help from the state to keep us afloat. But keeping those numbers in the black has been a little bit tough. And from what I understand, the most recently negotiated contract with the sheriffs is going up 17% over 3 years. But we're already, struggling. So we're hoping that we'll get some more tax income. So it's financial. It's financial. We've got a beautiful city, but prices, like everybody else,
Everything costs
keeps going up. But we're working on that and keeping the public safe. We're one of the safest cities in the state, and it's always fantastic. We're usually between 1, 3, and 4. It helps to have a substation in our city, so we have a lot of cars, patrol cars going through. But just making sure we stay ahead of that.
Yeah.
And there's always something new popping up.
Good. Well, look, I appreciate you coming on and,
Thanks,
and
Barry.
sharing all your views, and certainly we appreciate all the good work that you do for the city of Aliso Viejo, and continued success to you and your family and the
Thank
city.
you, sir.
And I'm glad you're healthy, and
Yeah,
I hope you
doing
stay
good.
that way, and many more brighter days ahead.
That's
So,
great. And thank you to you for doing, this is great work you do, getting the public out to know what's going on with public officials and other folks in the business and all about real estate, because that's important, very important.
Well, I appreciate you teeing me up. And that is our show. It is Tuesday. We've talked some real estate. We will be back here next Tuesday. I am Barry Saywitz, president of the Saywitz Company, managing partner of Saywitz Properties. I want to give a special thanks to everybody here at OC Talk Radio for all their continued support in putting the show on. And we'll see you back here next week on more Let's Talk Real Estate.
Well, there you have it. You've been listening to Let's Talk Real Estate, your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current state of the real commercial real estate market right here in Southern California. On Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studio here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation